Hello Year 9 and welcome to your history lesson. I am Mrs. Green and I'm going to be teaching you today. We have met once before. You may remember that we did conscientious objectors in the First World War together. So last week you looked at the political spectrum and then started looking at Germany in the 1920s. And today we're going to look at the differences between democracy and dictatorship. So please could you all write the date and the title at the top of your exercise book, which is Democracy and Dictatorship. Pause the video and resume when you're ready. So by the end of today's lesson, you should be able to explain the differences between a democracy and a dictatorship and give some examples and explain why a dictator may come to power. So let's start by looking at the photos on this slide. Have a think about what is happening and why it is happening. Well, I hope you all recognised your current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and the photos here are of election night in December 2019, just over a year ago, when the Conservatives won the general election. And in the picture on the left, you can see the vote counting going on. Why was there an election? Well, it's because the UK is a democracy. And the word democracy comes from the Greek demos, meaning the people, and kratos, meaning to rule. So one of the key features of a democracy is the fact that the government is elected every few years. And that means the people have the right to vote for the party they would like to lead the country. Each political party needs to tell the voters what they will do if they are elected to help people decide who they would like to vote for. So in a democracy, the elections will be free and fair elections. And what I mean by that is that people won't be intimidated or face reprisals if they don't vote for a particular person or party. And anyone can have the right to stand for election. And every adult has the right to vote. In the UK, you need to be 18 to vote. So you'll all be able to vote in about 4 years or so, which is actually not very far away. So in your books now, I'd like you to write down democracy and complete this definition using the words from the box below. Okay, and pause the video and resume when you're ready. Well, hopefully you will all have written down democracy is a form of government where the people share in deciding how things are run, ruled by the people. Let's move on. Look at these photos of world leaders. So which one do you think is the odd one out? So well done if you said Kim Jong-un, who is the leader of North Korea. And this is because North Korea is not a democracy, but a dictatorship. So some countries are ruled very differently. They are dictatorships. The dictator is the person who runs the country. People do not get to vote and do not get to decide who should lead the country. The leader or dictator can act as he wants, as he has all the power. And I've included this map, which I actually found on Wikipedia, which shows how countries were rated for freedom in 2016. So I'd like you to now write down dictatorship and complete this sentence, again using the words from the box at the bottom. Pause the video and resume when you're ready. So you should all have written down, dictatorship is a form of government where the leader has total power. So we're now going to move on to our first task. I would like you to look at these statements in the different coloured boxes and sort them into two columns. One column under the heading democracy and one column for dictatorship. So you can either choose to write this by hand in your book, just looking at this slide, or if you prefer, there's an attachment on Satchel called Democracy Dictator column phrases, and you can download that and you can see it will have the same phrases as on this slide, and you can cut and paste the phrases into two different groups. So if we do the first one together, I'll look at this one. Everybody can vote and help to choose the government. We've just talked about that, and that is going to go under the heading democracy. So as a challenge, and I'd like you all to attempt the challenge, could you also try and think or find out 3 countries which are democracies and 3 countries which are dictatorships to put on your list. So pause the video while you do this task and resume when you're ready. Well done everybody for completing the first task, and your list should look something like this. So under democracy, we have everybody can vote and help choose the government. People have the freedom to criticise the government and protest about its policies. Newspapers can write what they like about government. Everybody, including the government, must obey the laws of the land. People can follow any religion they wish. And a government has a limited time in power, after which voters can choose a different government. And under dictatorship, you should have, there are no free elections to change the government. Secret police keep the people under control, often using brutal methods like torture. Trade unions are banned. The government controls the media, newspapers, radio and films, allowing people to see and hear only what it wants them to. That's known as censorship. People who criticise the government may be tortured, imprisoned or sent to special camps. So if you need to make some changes to your list, just pause the video while you do so. So we've looked at the differences between democracy and dictatorship, and now we're going to think about why a dictator might come to power. So I'd like you to come up with some reasons and write them down in the form of a short paragraph. So if you need a clue, what I would say is think about situations where people might think a strong government would be good. Think back to your last lesson on Germany after the First World War and the problems with hyperinflation. And you can also look at the attached reading for some ideas. So pause the video while you write down your ideas as a brief paragraph. So let's look at some possible answers. An acceptable answer would be along the lines of, when the people are unhappy due to a lack of food, violence or unemployment, they might think a strong leader could help them. A good answer would be, a dictator is more likely to come to power during a time of political and economic uncertainty. For example, when there are problems such as high unemployment, food shortages, strikes and violence. In these situations, people may feel unhappy with their current leader or government and believe they need a strong leader who can tackle these problems. Of course, this is just one suggestion and you may have expressed your ideas differently, which is fine too. If you want to add anything to your answer or make some changes, just pause the video now and resume when you're ready. We now come to our last task of the lesson. So using the reading, which you'll find uploaded on Satchel, I would like you to look at each country and fill in the table. So you'll find copies of the table as an attachment as well. And there are two versions. One's blank and one has some starter sentences if you need a bit of help. If you prefer to write it out by hand, that's absolutely fine as well. So pause the video while you find copies of the reading and the table, and then we will do the first one together. So if we look at the first one together, the country is Germany and the leader is Hitler of the Nazi Party. That's quite straightforward. For how they came to power, I'm just going to sum up in a couple of sentences. So what I've written is, the Nazi Party grew in support after the 1929 economic depression. Hitler became Chancellor in 1933 and then set up a dictatorship. And under type of dictatorship, I've put fascist. And fascist means a person or political party with extreme right-wing views. So think back to last week's lesson on the political spectrum. And I've also included a glossary which you can use if you're not sure on any words. Completing that table is going to take the rest of the lesson, but make sure you leave 5 minutes at the end for the quiz. If you've done the table and you still find you've got some time, can you think of a strength and a weakness for democracy and for dictatorship? And as I've said, leave 5 minutes at the end to go to Kahoot to test yourself and see how much you can remember from today's lesson. Remember to submit your work, which will be the table and the challenge if you did it, to Miss Madden on Show My Homework. And thank you for working so hard, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.